So today we're going to talk for just a minute about the 6 TEKS in our personal financial literacy unit for 3rd grade. The first one, 3.9a, is all about human capital or labor and how that affects my income. So finding that connection. For example, the student needs to understand that the higher my education level, the higher my ability to earn income, or my income increases as I have more education. And you can talk about that if you look at salaries of someone with no high school education, or maybe when you get your first job when you're 16, you probably are making minimum wage because you don't have skills, you don't have a college degree or a technical degree or some certification that says you have experience or education that makes you worth more when you do that job. And then as you get a high school diploma, how does your income earning ability change? As you get an associate's degree or a technical certification to work in one of our plants, or a bachelor's degree, what changes in your job opportunities and income opportunities? How does it look when you have a master's degree? What does it look like when you have a doctorate? So how does my human capital, meaning my experience and my education, affect my income? So 3.9b, students can really relate to, and we need to make those personal connections with it. So we're talking about the availability or scarcity of a good or some item, and what does availability or scarcity do to the cost of that item? How does it impact it? We learned this as supply and demand. They learn it with terms that they're just a little bit more aware of, something being available or not available. And we can all relate to the 2020 craziness of quarantine time when toilet paper was apparently something you needed to make a run for. So that's something students can relate to. You couldn't find it. They can also relate to, especially this time of year, Christmas presents, and when you're looking for something that you really want and it's hard to find, what does that do to the cost? Will you pay more for it? When some new video gaming system comes out, what happens? Well, people line up for hours to get their hands on it, and it costs a lot of money. But after it's been out for a long time and it's not the newest thing on the block, it doesn't cost as much money because it's available, it's not a new thing, so that affects the price of those goods. 3.9c is all about planning and planning spending decisions. So the difference between a planned decision and an unplanned decision. And kids can usually relate to that one too, because they probably hear their parents talk about a car that broke down, or the AC went out, or the refrigerator quit working, or any of those kinds of things. Planned decisions versus when something happens that causes you to have to spend money that you weren't planning to spend. So making those personal connections will help kids with those concepts. 3.9d, this is a tougher one for kids. Our TEK says we're going to explain that credit is used when our wants or our needs exceed the ability to pay, and that it's the borrower's responsibility to pay it back to the lender with interest. So helping kids understand, some of you do a classroom economy and you intentionally build this in so that when you get to this it makes a little more sense. Helping kids understand that when I don't have money and I have to borrow money, whether I borrow it from the bank or I borrow it from a relative or I use a credit card, there are costs to doing that, and the cost to doing that is called interest. And not only am I responsible for paying back the money that I borrowed, I'm also responsible for paying it back with interest in some cases. So that's what 3.9d is about. Then 3.9e is talking about the reasons why we save money and the benefits to having a savings plan, such as saving for college, or saving for a home, or saving for a big purchase. So the reasons we save money is so we don't find ourselves in these unplanned spending situations having to borrow and then pay more for something. If we've planned and we've saved, then when something happens, we have the means to pay for it without having to go into debt to do that. And then, of course, including talking about the cost of college and how do we save for that. And, the earlier we start saving, the more opportunity we have to save enough for those big purchases. And then last, that 3.9F, decision making. That's decision making about income, spending, saving, credit, and then we bring in charitable giving here. And a lot of times we do this at Christmas because we can talk about doing some sort of a gift drive or a drive for the animal shelter where students are making some kind of a donation to something. And you can talk about different things that they've donated to before. Maybe they've made donations to their church, or they've made donations to the animal shelter, or to an organization that helps homeless people. Maybe they've gone and helped with a food drive. We've seen a lot of those over the last couple of years. So any kind of charitable giving conversations, it's the decision-making part of that this TEAC covers. Identify decisions involving income, spending, saving, credit, and charitable giving. So that's the overview of personal financial literacy. This is 6 supporting TEACs, and so these all have fantastic performance tasks in our Mission Math site that allows us to give some real-world situations for each of these TEACs to help kids make connections to them. Let me know if you need help finding that, or you need ideas for how to do this in a meaningful way with your kids.